Hi, this is going to be a quick introduction to how to set up a normal election. A normal election is an election where we have a number of members of an institution we're voting for out of a larger pool of members. In this case, it's 9 members out of a pool of about 50 or 60, and we want to have unique ballots for all of these members, or a number of these members who are going to vote electronically. So I'm just going to go through the process quickly, and hopefully it makes sense. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click on Create New Election. Give the election a name, so we'll just call this a test election. A description, test election description. We may want to send some details of the election when we get results and so on and so forth, or when we start it, some details, and we send it to an address so that we can keep records of it. So I'll use my address at this point. Then we're going to select the number of votes we want. In this case it's 9. There's a drop down here, you can't actually see it for some reason. So you can select the number of votes, in this case 9. We want to select a normal election. You'll find a couple of choices here. And then we've got 2 different list types. We've got one where you have to key in the names, and another one where you just have a pile of buttons. You can select the number of buttons required to cast a ballot. In this case we're going to use a list. Now it's a list from, you can only type in names from a select pool, but in order to sort of create an element of anonymity, we have what's here called a autocomplete limit, which means this is the number of characters you need to type in of a person's name before it will show you a list. And at the moment the options are 1, 2 and 3, so you can type one letter and then it'll show you all those names that contain that letter, or 2 letters, and so on and so forth. 3 is a number I like to use. Then the next thing we do is, before I come to these things, we're going to create a table, or a sort of a file of all of the names of the people who are going to be participating in this election. And we do that by, you can use numerous methods, but what we're doing here is I have a notepad with the name of the list. Now this can be generated from your community lists or your lists wherever, and you can generate this list from, export it from an Excel file, and this format is what's called a comma separated values file, or a CSV. And there are 4 fields we need to sort of put into this list of names that we're going to participate in this election. The first field is the name, and this should be unique, and it should be identifiable. So in some cases, if a person is not identifiable by a normal name, they use a nickname or a pseudonym, or they have an anglicized name, you can add it to the list. So you may want to say this person is, and it's up to you how you want to do it. So you may be also known as Eb, right? For example, I'm just arbitrarily choosing a sample here. The third field after the comma, the second field after the comma is an email address to which their unique email is sent, which includes a unique token, which is a single ballot that they'll get in their email address. The third element is whether or not this person is to be an electee, and an electee in this case is someone who can be voted for. And the third one is an elector, whether this person can vote in the election. Now this will only be applicable if there is an email address. So if there's no email address, this field is unused effectively. It'll be ignored. You can either use 1 or 0, or you can use yes. You can use yes or no if you wish. So this person is an electee, they can be voted for, and no, they're not participating in the election in an electronic way. I have a list of names here, and I've put some examples at the bottom of names with an email address who are going to participate, and they're just sort of using my email addresses at this point. So you've got myself, who here is both an electee and I am going to participate in the election. This person here who is someone else, a different email address, and they're going to also participate as an electee and elector. We may say, okay, it doesn't really matter. We may say no, they're not an elector, and it'll then ignore the email address, but that's up to you how you want to do it. If you happen to make both no, then that particular person will be completely ignored in the system. So you can just put your entire community list, and those who are ineligible for voting, you just put no and no, and the system will filter it out. So you don't need to worry about trying to pull out all the names, maybe children or so on and so forth. So I'm going to make that yes and no. And lastly is this is someone who, again I'm using my email address, who is an elector but they are not eligible to be elected. Now this is in the case of, in terms of the Baha'i community and the local assemblies or the institutions, they're individuals who are over the age of 18 but under the age of 21, so they're either 18, 19 or 20. They're allowed to vote in the elections, but they can't serve on the institution. So you would make that a no and a yes. So they can't be voted for, but they can vote. So once you've done that, we're going to copy it all, and I'm going to copy it excluding the top row because we don't need that, it's just for reference. And then we're going to go back to our election window, and here we're going to paste all those names in. So now all the names are pasted into this text field box here. Doesn't matter whether you use yes and no's or so on and so forth. Now once you've done all that, you can click on create. Now I'm going to have a slight issue here because I've got two email addresses that are against different people. The same email addresses, sorry, against different people. Now you can allow this in the case of sometimes you have a household that has one email address. A couple may use one email address for both of them, and therefore you may need to send two different ballots to one email address. So it will allow duplicates, but you have to sort of say, yes, I will allow duplicate email addresses in this list. If I don't do that and try and create this list, I will get an error saying, oops, invalid email address twice. Okay, I made a mistake on the first line, just go back and check it. I've obviously made the email address Y, which is invalid, so I'm going to just put an extra comma in there. I'll do create again, and it'll tell me that on line 54 there's a duplicate email address from line 53. So I know I've got a duplicate issue here. So I will allow this because we're doing a test here, and both James Fisher and Jill Hemingway will send to my email address. So will myself on my personal email address. And then we create the election. Now once that's done, you're given an election ID, which is unique to your election, and you have a secret key. And both of these you need to sort of keep. You will get an email giving you that information to the email address you've assigned. In my case, it was my personal email address, and I will get that information also passed through to that. So you may want to make a copy of this, or write it down, or wait for your email. But this is where we are. Okay. Sorry, just making my own notes. All right, so that's done. This election ID. Oops, make a note of this. I apologize. This is a very amateur video, but it's the way it is. Okay, once that's done, click on OK. Oops, click on OK, and it will take you to the management page straight away. In here, if you want to get into it, you put your secret key in that was emailed to you or noted down, and it will take you to the actual election management page. Now in this, you can see the election has no ballots and 9 votes per ballot and hasn't been started. So if someone tries to click on the link, it'll just tell them the election hasn't been started, so it's up to you as to when you want to start it. Oh, actually, more to the point, the emails aren't sent until you actually start the election. So I'll click on start the election here, and a bunch of emails which want to start the election. Click a yes, and the election will be started. And you'll immediately get a list of all those people who were entitled to vote in the election as an elector. In this case, I mean, the other people may vote in other means if your institution is and your AGM is set up to do this, of course. But these are people who have been given the option or will be given a ballot electronically to vote. So once that's done, you can go check your email address, and we'll go and check the email address, and you can see quite here that I will just do a refresh and I should get a ballot. So this is Jill Hemingway. If you recall, Jill Hemingway was a voter in the election. I'll just go back and just show you what the conditions were. So the conditions were James Fisher can be voted for, but he's not voting in the election. Sometimes you may have this. This is an interesting case. This is when you have a delegated election. So only delegates are permitted to vote in the election, but many other people can be voted for. You can vote for people who are not delegates, but only delegates allowed to be elected. So you do the same thing, but you'd list instead only the delegates would get a yes in this column here. Anyway, back to the email. You can, email, there it is. Alright. Back to the email, you'll see that Jill Hemingway here has a ability to vote. So when she gets this email, she clicks on this link, and that will take you to a page which allows you to actually vote in this election. Now you're given a text box here to vote, and in here you can start to type your name. So I'll give you an example. We'll look at Rob. We know we had a Robert Thorpe in the list, so we can click on him. He's now added to it. If I change my mind, I can unclick on him and I can change it to is there any we can change it to Brenda Marvin. Okay, and then I'll put Rob Thorpe in, back in, because I can't think of other names right now. But you'll notice that Jill is not able to be voted for because she was not an electee. I'm assuming she's between the ages of 18 and 20. So, so this person who is now voting, Jill Hemingway, is not entitled to vote. And if the elector can vote for themselves, of course, if they're permitted to be part of the election. So we'll pull in a few other names and complete this ballot while I'm at it. Let's go with Kim and go with Terrell. We'll go with Andrea. Who else will we go with? I'll go with Ross. These are all random names, by the way. There's no one that I know of with these real names because I just used a random name generator. Let's put in a Rebecca. Let's put in a Sergio. And finally we get to 9 names. So we're sort of happy with it. If you want to change any name, okay, well, don't want Robert Thorpe. Really, we didn't want Robert Thorpe on our list. So we'd get rid of Robert Thorpe and let's put Diane instead. Diane Hayes. So put Diane in. And so now we've got the 9 names, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we click on vote. And it'll ask us if we, and away we go, we voted. And I'll just click back to home, and we're now back at the home as a user, of course, in this case. Now the manager of the election is here. We'll do a refresh of this page and key in our secret key again, and you'll see that it lists Jill Hemingway as having voted and David Lucas as not having voted. Now, if for some reason this person, David Lucas, has not voted, or they say, listen, I can't find this email, or I lost it, or whatever, you can click on this here and we'll resend the email to that individual. Now it doesn't create a new ballot, it just resends them the link to the same ballot. Now just to show you what happens if a person tries to vote again with their the same link. You'll see if we go back to this Jill Hemingway and click on vote, it will say, thank you, Jill Hemingway, you voted in this election, you cannot vote again on that ballot. And so it's locked in. That ballot is well and truly locked in. So I'll quickly go ahead and vote as my other user. David looks, actually no, I won't worry about that. I mean, yeah. So we do this now. We've finished with the election. We go back to our management of the election, and we can say, okay, I've finished, so I'm going to stop this election, and I sure want to stop this election. Yes, and then I have to key in my secret key again, which you should have in an email, and immediately it shows you the results of the election. Now, this is obviously you don't want it in this particular circumstances, because one ballot you can see who voted for, so you're going to have multiple ballots in this case. So, but here you can see these are all the names I keyed in, and it shows you who voted and so on and so forth. Do not do this if you only have one person voting, unless you're conditioned on being able to see who they voted for. This is an important consideration. Know that in the background of this application, the votes are all anonymized, so there's no way to undo a ballot. So if a person has voted in this way and they say, I want to change my mind after they've voted, there's no way of removing their votes from the accumulated ballots. The reason for this is we don't keep in the system the individual votes on a ballot per elector. As a matter of, we try and keep it anonymized. But the consequence is people, once they vote, it is locked in. There's no ability to reverse that. This is something that we can talk about, but yeah. So once you're done, you can download the electoral report. And if I open this up, it's going to open up in a different window, and it's going to throw. So I'll show you what the electoral report's going to look like. So one second, I'll show you what it looks like. And the electoral report looks like this, so you can see when the election was, you can see when this is the electee report, of course, the election name, election description, votes per ballot, ballots cast, obviously only the one, when the election started and stopped, and then here is the name of the individual, and the votes as the results. This is the results of your election. Okay. You will also be able to download a we can download the electoral vote report, which will give you a similar thing indicating all the people that were entitled to vote in this manner and voted electronically. Once you're done with all of this and you're happy, you download your results. The results, if you'd set an email, will also come to you in an email. You can either reset the election for, if you had to, for any reason, which deletes all the votes and resets all the ballots. But this is not used, but you might likely want to say delete it for security reasons or privacy reasons. And once you delete the election, it's all done. You can no longer go to that election. I think that's it for now.